The client, he thought, as he crept along the corridor in his dark green overalls. He should have done some digging. He should have followed the lawyer, bugged her, tried to find out who she was working for, but he'd been so seduced by her promises of danger and glory that he'd ignored the niggle which had become a nag and was now a mantra. The client, the client, the client. They say knowledge is power, but the knowledge he was about to steal was death, and he didn't have the slightest hint of the identity of the person he'd be giving it to. Foster resolved to hold on to the evidence, to use it to bargain for two things: more money and the identity of the lawyer's, and ultimately his, client. The black boots he'd bought from a discount shoe warehouse clumped along the polished floor, but there was no one else in the building to hear. The cleaning shift had ended at 3 a.m., and he'd hidden in a store cupboard while the rest of the crew had filed out of the bank, signing their names on the security sheet next to their inbound scrawls. He'd faked writing his name when he'd come into the building, so that if the security guards checked, they'd find a perfect match between those coming in and those going out. A simple and effective ploy that gave him the freedom to roam the building for a few hours until the first of the square-jawed, perfectly coiffed wannabe Rockefellers strode into the bank to begin another 12-hour shift of real-world monopoly. A wall of glass lay to his left, displaying the deserted, brightly lit interior of the neighbouring skyscraper, the Leadenhall building, which loomed over No. 1 Undershaft, the headquarters of Bayard Madison Bank. Foster was 27 stories up, but that was no longer high enough to see clear sky in London, and the stars that hung above the jagged skyline were only visible in a small space to the north of the wedge-shaped tower. Like a trapeze artist caught in that moment of perfect inertia at the apex of a jump, neither rising nor falling, an impossibly still London was about to tumble into new day. In the quiet streets and empty offices lay the promise of things to come, the thrill of the possible imbuing those now lifeless spaces with ripe potential. Foster had always preferred the dead of night to the tumultuous day. In the stillness lay hope, the prospect that one day everything might go just right. Bustling daylight only illuminated how wrong everything was, and there weren't many things more rotten than what lay in the server room at the heart of the 27th floor. Foster hadn't told the lawyer what he'd found, but he had finally answered her questions about his old comrade. She'd kept pressing for details on Pierce, and the excitement she'd exhibited when he'd pointed her towards Thailand led Foster to suspect that he hadn't been top of the lawyer's list of investigators. He didn't take the slight personally. Even among the select group of people with Foster's experience, Scott Pierce was a legend. He hoped his brother-in-arms would forgive the betrayal, and if things got as ugly as he feared, there was no one Foster would rather have standing by his side. Foster continued along the glass-walled corridor until he came to a heavy door. 2 nights ago, he'd lifted the wallet of one of the bank's directors in a nearby bar, colliding with the unsteady man who'd been headed to the toilets to relieve himself of the best part of a £500 bottle of champagne. Foster had left the bar, found the nearest storm drain, and tossed the wallet and everything in it, apart from the keycard, which he now swiped over a reader. 3 thick deadlocks snapped back in sequence, and he pulled the handle, slowly opening the heavy door to expose the temperature-controlled corridor that lay beyond. The huge windows were replaced by solid grey walls on either side. Foster continued along the corridor a short way until he came to a wide space that lay at the heart of the building. A few feet away stood row after row of black servers, housed in racks that stretched from floor to ceiling, their red operating lights solid and unblinking, like the eyes of so many devils.